Today, I will be teaching you something on web authoring. I got to know majority of the students used to have issue on this topic, especially because of the CSS and HTML. However, this topic is very easy, and I'm going to break it down and I'm going to show you how to pass paper 3 with easy. Now, the first thing you need to know is paper 3 ICT questions. It comprises of two different topics. The first thing is the web authoring and the second one is the data analysis. The software you will use for web authoring is Microsoft Expression, and for data analysis the software you are going to use is Microsoft Excel. Alright, then I'm going to do another video later on Microsoft Excel, but for now I'm going to dedicate this video, part 1, part 2 and part 3, for web authoring. When you watch this part 1, when you watch this, make sure you watch part 2 as well as part 3. Now, introduction. Web authoring is part of paper 3 questions. Students is expected to display some knowledge of HTML, CSS, as well as a bit of graphic design knowledge, because you'll be given some few questions on that. And usually Cambridge always asks some few questions on networking. Now, questions in web authoring are easy, and of course if you treat as many past paper as possible, they are always you will see a lot of repetition there. Then it is easy to get 100% in this section. One of few things you need to know before we jump into HTML as well as CSS is what we call web development layer. There are 3 different layers. The first one we call it presentation layer. Anything that has to do with formatting the whole page or individual element, you do it in presentation layer. And this is actually where we have cascading style sheet, which is CSS. For the content layer, here this is where you write the text, you write your HTML code. Anything that has to do with content, you put it in the content layer. Then this exact place where you do all the building blocks, the HTML itself. All right. Then of course the full meaning of HTML is hypertext markup language, for those who didn't know. Then for behavioral layer, here is just the JavaScript. Here you do only scripting. What you do here is scripting. For example, when you want to close the window and you see a pop-up message which says, are you sure you want to close the window? That's what we call behavioral layer, and you do that one with JavaScript. That's one it has to do with scripting. Just pay attention to that. Now let's talk about HTML and CSS. We use HTML to create content. Then when it comes to CSS, we use it just only to create layouts. Now, as I mentioned earlier, CSS falls under presentational layer, while HTML falls under contents layer. Then the file extension, whenever you create anything in HTML, you have to make sure the file extension is .html or .htm. Then another thing you need to know here is the file extension for CSS, you need to save it as .css. Anything HTML, you need to save it as .html or .htm. Anything CSS, you need to save it as .css. Then finally, you can use any text editor to create your HTML and CSS. Either you use a Notepad or you use Notepad++. Any text editor, you can use it for your HTML and CSS. Now let me talk about CSS first, because it's the most difficult part of it, and majority of students used to find it quite difficult. Now let me talk about CSS. CSS One of the first thing you need to know here is something we call hexadecimal color. Cambridge, they usually require hexadecimal color code. They will never ask you to write the name of the color itself, but they will prefer you to write it in hexadecimal. All right. Now we start our hexadecimal code with hashtag. So pay attention to that. Then the color code, it must be 6 digits. 6, no more, no less. It shouldn't be 5 or 7 or whatever, just only 6 digits. And it needs to be started with hashtag. One thing you need to know here, there is something we call RGB. RGB. R stands for red, G stands for green, and B stands for blue. Each one represents FF. 2 letter F. R means FF. G means FF, and blue means FF. Now, when you have red color, it means you have FF, FF, FF. If everything is on, then you have color white. If everything is FF, 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 you have color white. If everything is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, you have color black, white and black. White is F 6 times. Black is 0 6 times. Just pay attention to that. But what about if you have F and the remaining one is 0, then that one is red. RGB. You turn it on. You turn it on. So RGB is just as simple as this. As you can see from here, R, this one is F, F. Then for the G, you turn it to 0. Then this one is also 0. Then you start with hashtag. What about G? If it is G, it means R is 0, G is FF, then and B is 0, 0. That's how it works. Then you start with hashtag. What about blue? What is color blue now? So R, you start with hashtag. R is 0, 0. G is also 0. Only B is F. I told you earlier, if everything is F, then that is color white. If everything is F, that is color white. So pay attention to that. And if everything is blue, if everything is 0, then that one is color black. Everything is 0, that is the color black. These are the 5 most famous color IGCSE used to give you. What about pink? They will never ask you to do this. If they want you to do pink, they will write it for you. They will write it for you for sure. So maybe something like hashtag 80 80 00. So if I'm not mistaken, so this is color pink or color purple or something like that. Yeah, this is purple. You get it. So now pay attention to that. Usually just only 3 color: red, green, blue, white, and black. So pay attention to all this. Now if you know that, let's go to something else. CSS syntax. When we say CSS syntax, whenever the question is talking about font size, then that is font family. Then how do you write it? You write it like this. Whenever the question is talking about font size, then you have to write font, then dash, then size. And this is an example. What about font style? This is an example. It can be italic, it can be underline. But whenever the question is talking about font weight, then you have to write it like this, font weight. What about color? Then you write the color like this, and this is an example. Alignment, then is going to be text align. It can be center, text align, it can be center, it can be left, it can be right, it can be justify. Then the background color, you also write it like this. Then what about the image? You also write it like this. If the question wants you to do anything like comment, then this is how you do comments. All right, and you can write anything in between of the comments. Now let's take some examples now. Let's take some examples. But before we do that, there's another thing you need to know here. Whenever we are talking about table, there is something we call TD. The internal grid line, we call it TD. Internal grid line, we call it TD, and this is where we talk about padding. Anything padding is TD. Then anything external grid line, then that one is table border. That one is table border. So you take note of that. Now, after that, let's take some examples. If you take some examples, then you will get it much more better. This one example. All right. Now, in this example, the software I will be using is Notepad. The software, you can use Notepad++ if you have it in your computer. But virtually everyone used to have Notepad. This is the software I'll be using, all right? And you can use this one in your exam as well. Now, let me start from the simplest. This one, I'm going to start from the simplest, and the simplest is this. It doesn't matter which one you start with. H3. You're having H3. You need to create a style for H2. You need to create for H1. Then all the headings. Then TD, table data. You need to create for border. And you need to create for table as well. Now, let's see how to go about this. I'm starting with H3, okay? I'm starting with the simplest, H3. Whenever you want to create your CSS, you start with curl bracket. This one we call it CURL, curl bracket. H3, you open it and you close it. H3, you open curl bracket and you close it. And in between, you are going to write the property as well as the value now. So it says that ending point I, ending point I, which means the text align or the font size, the size of the font size is ending point PT. Whenever the question is talking about height, because H3 it means heading tree. Ending point high, it means it's font size. Just pay attention to that. So point, if it is pixel, then you write pixel. But the question is talking about point, then it's point. Okay. Then don't forget that we don't use equal. Don't say font size is equal. We never use equal in CSS. We use column. All right, we use column. Then you put semicolon here. You know the reason why we put semicolon? Because we still want to write another property. Having been this the last property, there is no need of putting semicolon. Okay, but we are going to put semicolon because we are writing another property now. This H3 is bold. I showed you earlier, if you want to say something is bold, we are going to use font weight. There are few things you need to, you just need to memorize them. You don't have option, you know. Here, you have to memorize it. Whenever they are talking about bold, then it means font weight. It means font weight. So font weight, you just need to write it, is bold. Now, this is simple. Finish. That's what they want you to do. Okay. Now, let me do, as I told you, I'm starting from the simplest one. Let me do for the second one, heading 2, H2. Again, the same style. You open the curl bracket and you close. Now, in between of the curl bracket, 24 points high. 24 points high. I told you earlier that is font size. Font size is 24 pt. Simple. There is no need of putting semicolon here. Why? Yeah, because this line is the last one. It doesn't look professional if you put semicolon here and curl bracket at the same time. So the last one, there is no need of putting semicolon. So this one is just as simple as this. Now let's go back. What about H1? Can you try this? The same style, 48 points high. that will be font size, then is 48 pt, semicolon. Then what other thing they want you to do under alignment right? Alignment right. I told you earlier, text align. Whenever they are talking about alignment, that is text align. That this, just try to memorize it. You just need to memorize few commands and they will keep repeating it several times. So font text align is right. Then you close your call bracket. Can you see now? So we finish H1, we finish H1, H2 and H3. Now another one. The question says all heading styles. All heading styles. The first thing, all heading style means all the headings. What are the headings? H1, H2, H3. They share the same property. They share all this property. Then you need to write H1 comma, H2 comma, H3 comma. All of them, they share the following property. H1, H2, H3 share the, that's why they say all headings styles, they share the same property. So the first property they share is color. What is the color? Do you remember RGB I told you earlier? Color red we follow. Of course you are starting with hashtag. Then what is the value for red here? Is FF, exactly, FF. Color, just remember this RGB, okay? Red comes first, followed by G, followed by blue. Now, according to this question, red is FF you are given. What about green? Is also FF you are given. What about blue? 00. Then simple. This one, so just delete this one. I only write this one just as an example. Okay, that's your color. FF, FF, 00. Then comma. Now, what is the next thing? Font. So how do we do fonts? That's font family. Whenever they are talking about font family, you will see that you just need to take note of few things. Whenever you are talking about color, then you just write color and you write whatever it is. Whenever they are talking about font family. Whenever they are talking about size, then font size. Whenever they are talking about alignment, text alignment, making 4. You see? Whenever they are talking about bold, then that's font weight. That's 5. So you just need to master few commands, few syntax. Then you can get 100% in this CSS. Now let's go back to the question. Font family. What is the font family? The first one says Times New Roman. So you need to type the font Times New Roman. But you cannot leave it like this. Why? Because the browser will think Times is one font, New is another font, Roman is another font. So if you want to tell the browser these 3 words is just only one, so you need to put it in the quotation mark. Okay, in this case, so browser will treat it as just only one word. Then you put comma here, but if not available, then times. Then if this one is not available, then times. Simple, you just type. You don't need to put quotes here or whatsoever, because this is just only one word. Okay, if it is many words like 2 or 3, then you can, but since just only one word, so there is no need. Or if these fonts are not available, the browser defaults serif font, serif. Then the last one is serif. If the question says sans serif, yeah, you're right, sans dash serif. All right, but the question sans serif, then but the question is talking about serif font here. If the browser defaults serif font is going to be used. 1, 2 and 3, finish. Then you close it. This all what you need to do for the headings, for all the headings. Okay, now next question. Now the next one say now is becoming a bit difficult now. Let's talk about this table data and cell padding. But before we continue, there is one thing I quickly want to draw your attention to. Just look at this question. Can you see border here? Can you see this one also? Border. You see the right table here and the right table data here. But you see, this table is actually sharing the same property as this table data. Both of them, they are visible. Both of them width is 2 pixels. Both of them are solid. And both of them, so they have the same color, which means they are sharing the same property. So you need to do them together, table and table data. Table data will actually represent table data with TD. I told you earlier, TD we used to represent table data. Now let's say TD, we say table, comma, TD, which is the table data. Both of them, they are sharing the same property. What is that property? The one I just showed you earlier. The border here, one, not collapse. So one, okay, the border here, for the borders, they are visible, which means you can see them. Then you just need to write border. What happened to border? One is visible. Two, width 2 pixels, which means it is 2 pixels. It is 2 pixels. Then it is solid according to the question. Then the color is hashtag 808000. Simple. Actually, you can write this one separate, you know. You can say border is this. Then you can say you can write it separate, but it's just a good idea just to write everything since it's just only one property. Since it's just only one property, you just write it together. Alright? It's just as simple as this. And you've done this: visible, width, solid, and border color. Now, the next one now, let's talk about padding. I told you earlier, whenever we are talking about padding, we are talking about TD. Padding, just only in TD we do padding. We don't do padding in, even you look at this question, the question never talk about padding here. It only talks about padding here. So if you look at the question here, you will see it says TD cell padding. It has all this property for the cell padding. You know, we have done this, right? We have done this, and for this one we have done this as well. Only these three we haven't done. Only these three on that table we haven't done these three. Then on for the table data, these three we haven't done it as well. Now, how do we do cell padding? Again, this one is going to be only TD, because the padding only belongs to table data. Now, cell padding. How? So you just say padding. What happened to it? Padding here, top is 8 pixels. Right and right, left and right is 20 pixels. Then bottom is 6 pixels. You just say padding top. Padding top, according to the question, is 8 pixels. Semicolon. Then padding left, padding left, then is 20 pixels. Then padding right is also 20 pixels. And finally, padding bottom is how many pixels? 6 pixels. Simple. Then we finish. This is all what you need to do. This all what, because you are given padding. So we don't have anything like cell padding or whatsoever. No, you just write ordinary padding. That's okay. Padding top is this and down. Now, finally, the last one is the last tree one here, which is the table. What do we need to do on that table here? Table, then you open bracket and you close it. Open bracket and close it. So position of the table, center align within the browser window. The table is in the center. So which means you need to say margin. So margin right and margin left. Margin, so we are having margin right, then it's going to be auto, since they say it's automatic. Then do you know the reason why we are doing this, by the way? Let me quickly open Microsoft Word and show you what they mean by that. Let's say you have a table here. Let's say you have a table. This is the browser. Your browser is starting from here until here, right? Now, and you have the table in the middle. They never specify how much space margin. This is what you call margin, right? The space between the start of your browser of your book or whatsoever, so to where the table appear. This is what you call margin. The space between here and here, this is what you call margin as well. Now the question says it is in the center. The table is in the center, which means if you have a very big screen, maybe your computer is very big, perhaps your own margin, it might be 500 here, it might be 500 here. Maybe another person who is having a very small screen, his own margin might be 120 pixels, another one might be 100. So it's going to be automatic. You are not given any particular number. The question never says the margin left is going to be maybe 300 pixels, or the margin right is going to be 500 pixels. It just is going to be, the browser is going to calculate it automatically. So that is why we have this. Okay, so that's why we have the one. So is that now? So that's why we have this. Margin right is auto. Then for the margin left also, margin left then is also automatic. It's going to be calculated automatic. Then what other thing? They said that with the size of the table, the size of the table, then what is it? 1200 pixel wide. 1200 pixel wide. Pixel wide, which means the width is 1200 pixel. And finally, the question says not collapse. Not collapse, which not collapse means border collapse. Whenever they are talking about not collapse, it means border collapse. Okay, border collapse is separate. When they say, if they say border collapse is collapse, then you just need to write collapse. Border collapse is collapse, then you just need to write collapse. But they said not collapse. Not collapse means it's separate. So take note of that. It's simple as this. So as I told you earlier, there is no need of putting semicolon there. This is what they ask you to do in this question. Just as simple as this. Can you see? Just as simple as this. So if you do have any question, you can drop it in the comments, then I will answer you. So by His grace. Now let's move to question number 2. I'm going to show you another one now. Now, example number 2, I'm going to show you. Let's look at this CSS. Let's look at this CSS. It's starting with this H1, H2, and H3. You are given H1, comma, H2, comma, H3. As I told you, you open curly bracket, then you close curly bracket. Don't forget. What do you need to do here? Font set to area. I told you whenever they are talking about font, that's font family automatically. Font family. So it is area. Simple. Just write it, comma. If it is not available, L vertical. L vertical. But don't make mistake. Because you are given already. Cambridge, they will not pardon you if you make typing mistake. because it is written for you. You have no reason not to write it correctly. Helvetica. Then if it is not available, if neither of these fonts are available, then display the default sans serif. Sans, then serif. Simple. Then semicolon. That's all what you need to do here. Next, font color. I told you whenever they are talking about color, mind your spelling. Don't write your color like this. Okay, color, color. Then what is it? Set to hexadecimal number, which means you need to write the code. Now, what is it? Hashtag 361215. RGB, they never say anything about RGB or whatsoever. You just need to write it the way they give it to you. Then comma here. What's the next thing? Center align. The next question says center aligned text. Center aligned text. That's text align. That's text align. Then you need to put it to be center. Center, like this. That's all what you need to do here. So now you close that. Let's go to next one, H1. What do you need to do in H1? Of course, you can take this one to next line, or you can even do it in the same line, so it doesn't matter where you put your call bracket. Now 30 points. You remember this one I told you? 30 points high. 30 points high. That's font size is 30 pt. Then you can just copy this one just to save time. You repeat it 3 times. Now H2, you change this one to H2. Font size, what is it now? Is 14. Then H3 is 20. All right. Now the next question. All table. This one say table. All table cells. Padding. I told you whenever you are talking about padding, for sure you are talking about TD. Okay, don't forget. So padding, because the question will never tell you one is table data. You know, the example I showed you earlier, they actually tell you in that question, table data, you need to do this. In the table, you need to do this. But this one never tell you. But there is one thing will let you to know where are you going to do this. Immediately you see padding, that one is table. When you see border, that one is table. All right, TD. You say TD, open it and close. Padding. You just need to type padding. What is it? 15 pixel. Don't forget. Then now no collapse border. I told you whenever you see border, then they are talking about table. So table, open this, close this. Now how do you do collapse? I told you you need say border collapse. Border collapse, then is separate. Border collapse is separate. Border collapse, then separate. You see? Just like the previous example we did. Border collapse, then you need to write separate. Now, finally, background color. The question is still talking about background color. Border collapse is separate. Now, the question is talking about background color. What is BG? Background color is the same thing, but this background color is talking about the body. The question never tell you you need to do this one in the body. Well, how do you know? Because anything background color, background image, for sure that one is in the body. Just know that automatically. Just like the way I told you, TD is for padding. Anything padding, you do it in the TD. Anything border, either border collapse or whatever, border width, you do it in the table. The same thing, background color, even if the question never say anything about body, just know background color in the body, background image in the body as well. So body now, how do you do this? You just say background, then color, like this. background color. What is it? Hashtag? No, hashtag blue. Don't forget the RGB I told you earlier. Okay, don't forget that RGB. Now let's write it now. Blue component set to hexadecimal number 99. Blue is 99. This one is 99. What about G? For both red and G, FF for both red and green component, which means FFFF. Can you see how this one goes? FFFF. Then so this RGB will help you a lot. So this one, it doesn't worth what you can lose marks. Yeah, simple. You see, very simple CSS. Now finally I'm going to show you another one, and I believe after that you should be confident enough to answer anything in CSS. Alright, then another one I'm going to show you, this is an example number 3. Example number 3. As I always tell you that it's a good idea to start from the simplest. It's a good idea to start from the simplest. In this case, I'm going to start from the last one, okay? At least if the point or the marks here is 24 marks, for example. If you cannot get 24 out of 24, then don't get 0 out of 24. At least if you get like maybe 15 out of 24, that's not too bad. You get 20 out of 24, that's not too bad. So it's not really necessary you start from the, from the toughest. You just start from the simplest, then you cannot go up like that. All right, now let's do like this. So this one says the style H3 again. H3, what happened to H3? Let's see. Is set to 12 point high, which means the font size is 12 point, PT, semicolon, then it is right align. That's text align. As I told you, anything align, and that's text align. Then text align is right. Simple. This one done within 30 seconds. Now let's do H2. H2, then the same style. H2 is set to 14 points. That's font size is 14 PT. Then it is left align. Then text align is left. Now what about H1? This one say H1. What happened to H1? Let's see. H1 is set to 36 points high, which means font size here then is 36 PT. Done. In no time, you see, we finished H1, H2, H3. Okay, you scroll down. Let's do style H1, H2, H3 R, which means this property we want to talk about now is actually belongs to, is common to H1, H2 and H3. You open curly bracket and you close it. Now what are the property? The first one is green, which means they are talking about color now. You remember RGB I told you? Now green with no red, no blue. No red, no blue, which means hashtag, can you tell me? No red 00, then it is green, FF, no blue 00. You see how it works? Then semicolon, let me delete that RGB. Now the next one, and have the fonts, it has the font, Segio, it has this font. Then that will be font family, then you just need to write it, font family print. But I told you whenever you have 2 words or 3 words, so browser will misinterpret them. So one thing you can do is to put in a quotation mark. All right, it's just only one word. Then if it is not available, then Verdana. Then if that font is not available, then you type Verdana. If neither of these fonts are available, the browser default sans serif. Sans serif. Then you need to type sans dash then serif. Sans serif. Normally you might be asking, why do we put dash here? Why not like this, sans serif? And we put this just to tell the browser. Well, to the best of my knowledge, what I know is usually sans serif, even if you check the previous example we do, anything sans serif, they normally write it like this. So you don't need to put double column. They actually want to convince you. For sure, you cannot leave it like this. But they want to confuse you. Do you actually know sans serif is you need to put dash in the middle, or you are going to put quotation mark. So normally sans serif you just need to put dash. Okay. Now, and I think that is finish. That's H1, H2, and H3. Just only two. Now the next one. What is next one on here? The background image. You remember what I told you about background? Body. Exactly. Body. I said body. Anything either background image or background color, it is body. Okay. Body. Then background image, the same thing. If it is background color, then you type background color. If it is background image, simple, background image. What happened to background image? This is how we write background image. A URL, then you open the bracket and close it, and of course you need to put it inside the quotation mark. This you need to memorize this. No one can help you on this. I told you earlier there are few things you need to memorize. By the way, there are few things you need to memorize. Whenever they are talking about background image, this is how we normally write it. Okay. Now, what is it? What is that background image? This is it. The background image 2031. Write it. 2031 dash bg dot png. That's how you do that. Simple. Then this question, the semicolon, then next. This question says is set to repeat to fill the browser. This background is going to repeat to fill the browser, which means you need to say now. So you just need to type background then repeat, because the question says background repeat is repeat. What about if it is non-repeat? Yeah, you just say non-repeat. But here background repeat is repeat. If it is non-repeat, actually the question will not even make mention of it, because by default, in as much as you don't write it, it means it will not repeat, right? But if you write it, it means it will repeat. So simple. Now the last part of the question now. So the last part of the question says all table borders have a width of 0 and grid line are separate. All table borders. Alright, now as I told you earlier, just look at this one. You look at this question, this part. You need to study it carefully. One, this one is talking about padding. You remember what I told you about padding, which means you are going to do this one in the TD. And any other thing, you will do it in the table. Any other thing, you will do it in the table. Now let me show you. Now this one say you are going to have table and you are going to have TD. Alright. Now padding, no padding. There is no cell padding, then it means it's 0 pixel. Simple. Just only one line. Now, how do we do this? The question says all table borders have a width of 0. Then we start. We say border width, the width of the border. So border width, what is it? Because they are talking about table, they are talking about the border and they are talking about the width. So you need to say border width. Alright? But having been they are talking about table only. They are talking about table only. Then you just need to say width. If they don't say anything about border. But since they are talking about border now and they are talking about width, then that one will be border, then width. What happened to border width? It is 0 pixel. That's the first thing. Grid lines, you know the meaning of grid lines? A grid line is the same thing as border. As I told you last time, a grid line is the same thing as border. So a grid line are separate, which means border collapse, then is separate. We've talked about this border collapse, many times. Even this grid line, if you don't even know, is it going to be whatever, immediately you see separate, you're supposed to remember that, okay, this one's supposed to be border collapse, all right, because it's the one that has this value separate. Now, next, all cell spacing within the table. All cell spacing within the table is set to 20 pixels. We are still talking of border. Border what? Border spacing. What happened to border spacing? It is set to 20 pixels. Now, the next one is the background color of the table is black. Background color black. You remember hexadecimal for black, everything 0 0 0 0 0 0. If it is F F F F F F, that is white. 0 0 0 0, that is black. Don't forget. Then the next one, the background color of the table is black. Then all tables are center aligned. All tables are center aligned in the browser. All tables are center aligned in the browser. You remember how we do this? We talk about margin right. We said it is auto. Then we said margin left. We say it is auto as well. Simple. This is all what you need to do. Can you see how many minutes does it take us to do this? So you just need to master this. Then I believe you'll be able to answer any question related to CSS you see. I'm going to have part 2 of this video and part 3 of this video. Then in part 2, I'm going to treat the whole web authoring question from A to Z. Then part 3, I will do the same thing. Then I believe if you watch this part 1, and you watch part 2, and you watch part 3, then you won't have any issue any longer as far as web authoring is concerned. So thank you for watching this video, and don't forget to subscribe so that you can get notification whenever I upload new videos. Thank you.
ICT
Bye.
textbook is boring, right? Do you believe it's too voluminous, containing a lot of information? Even if you read it 1 million times, you might still not be able to answer IGCSE questions correctly. We have a solution for you. We have created all-in-one IGCSE summary slides for each chapter. It covers the whole curriculum. We present it in a concise manner, all you need to be an A-star student. The slide is well prepared by an ICT Cambridge examiner. After each topic, we provide IGCSE-related questions with answers. Download now. www.highsayteamadeasy.com